未擺好喎，就俾人叫翻嚟。
好啦，議程第一項。
Right. Let's start. Agenda item number 1, confirmation of minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of October have already been issued to members. The Secretariat hasn't received any proposals for amendments. So can we confirm the minutes, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 2, information papers issued since the last meeting. We've received a paper from the administration on proposed adjustments to fees and charges under the purview of the TID. And then I would like to tell members that the new CEO of the Trade Development Council has extended an invitation to all members of the CI panel to a luncheon gathering on the 9th of December. In fact, the circular was issued to members on the 17th of October. Item 3. Functionman replacing Mr. Lam Tin Fook.
Margaret 係啦，有印象冇？
Do you remember her? Margaret Fong. So she has invited us to a luncheon gathering. All right. Our next meeting will be held on the 16th of December, Tuesday, at 2:30 p.m. And the items to be discussed include review of fees and charges of the Intellectual Property Department. Then, next, launching of a new enterprise support scheme to replace the Small Entrepreneur Research Assistance Program under the ITF, and this is item 3 on the list of outstanding items. Right? Any comments? Any questions? When will the next meeting be held, Chairman? 16th of December, Tuesday, 2:30 p.m. All right? Thank you. Thank you. And concerning item 1 on the list of outstanding items for discussion, consultation on a new set of copyright tribunal rules. The administration has proposed to formulate a new set of copyright tribunal rules to modernize the procedures and the rules of the tribunal. The administration has decided to circulate the rules to members. So after members have received the rules from the Secretariat, if they feel that there is a need to have a discussion on the rules, then they can notify the Secretariat. If the Secretariat hasn't received any requests from members for discussion, then this item will be deleted from the list of outstanding items for discussion. All right. In fact, this is item 1 on the list of outstanding items for discussion. So I think after we have received the rules, we can study them to see whether we have any comments. And if we don't have any comments, then we don't have to have a discussion. Right, next item on the agenda, item 4, comprehensive review of the Innovation and Technology Fund, ITF. Let's invite the administration in. And here I would like to inform members that the ITC has given members some souvenirs. So I would like to thank the Commissioner for the souvenir. Is it that this is the ITC's mascot or symbol? In fact, this year we have a pair of glasses. Last year, optic fiber. Last year, in fact, the theme was green technology. Yellow stands for Occupy Central. So maybe you may not want to use the color green next year anyway. All right. So we can now have a briefing from the administration. The Commissioner, please. Yes, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. Now, because this is a review of the work of the Commission in the past 15 years, and so my introduction may be a bit long. Now, for the ITF, it has a history of 15 years, and so last time we told members that we needed to carry out a comprehensive review of the fund. In February and March this year, we updated members on the progress of the review. And with members' indication of support, we implemented some of the improvement measures that could be implemented through administrative means. In this report, there are some new initiatives like the platform project. At the moment, we need at least 2 industry sponsors. Some have told us that this requirement will bring difficulties. And then maybe one industry sponsor provides 5%, the other 95%. And so we have relaxed the minimum number of industry sponsors to 1. But then the more sponsors there are, the more scores can be attracted. And then in the past, we didn't allow a company which was related to the university to sponsor an ITSP platform project. But according to the universities, they need to commercialize the research outcome, but they will have difficulties finding sponsors because many of these sponsors are related to the universities in one way or another. And we have a cash rebate scheme. It was launched some years ago, and the feedback is extremely good. We were able to secure $200 million from Finance Committee. And we are of the view that the CRS should be merged into the ITF for easier management. And I want to tell members what changes have taken place in the ITF from a macro point of view. We've looked at all the data. In the early stage, we were rather lopsided towards university R&D because at that time there was only the Productivity Council and the S3 apart from the universities. But then since 2006, we have set up the 4 R&D centers, nanotechnology, textiles and clothing, and so on and so forth. And so these R&D centers have since then taken up a lot of projects. And with regard to collaboration among the academic sector, the public sector, the private sector, these R&D centers have done a lot, and they've also done a lot with regard to commercialization of research outcome. And then, of course, there are the CIC, Customs and Excise Department, Housing Department, and the 4 R&D centers collaborate with a lot of these organizations and departments. And if you look at Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, you can see how we have streamlined procedures to facilitate realization and commercialization. The ITF provides financial support for projects that few are interested in investing in. And so this is a very important tool for us to create the right ecological environment to promote INT. We need to be user-friendly to our clients, and we are of the view that in the public sector, the system is already sound. And in the coming years, we will work very hard to expand our market to cover other discipline services, the airport authority, and so on and so forth. At the moment, we think that the ITF should in the future try to promote investments from the private sector. At the moment, the percentage or the breakdown is 55% public sector, 45% private sector. If we want to bake a bigger pie, we need more support from the private sector. Next year, we will be launching a new scheme. We'll be seeking funding approval, but then for this new enterprise support scheme, in fact, we have been publicizing it. We have told the industries that it would be replacing the Small Entrepreneur Research Assistance Program.
Next is about promotion of private enterprise R&D, and you cannot just cover everything, and therefore we have to specify the scope, and in particular areas we will try to identify the experts to do the job for us. And one is finance technology, because Hong Kong is an international financial R&D center. Second, all businesses will have to rely on e-commerce these days, and therefore that would also have a lot to do with logistics. And finally, is about biotechnology. And on top of that, we would also like to use the ITF to help resolve some social problems. For example, we've been working very hard on a theme. That is how we can make use of technology in order to make the life of the elderly more comfortable and safe. In particular, for the elderly, for elders having to stay in RCHEs, the percentage is relatively high in Hong Kong, and in the future, if we are able to make use of technology to reduce the use of manpower so that elders do not have to go into RCHEs, I think that would be a good thing. That's why, all in all, we will be making use of the ITF in order to make use of talents and also public sector and also private enterprises collaboration, so that in the long run we'll be able to make contribution to the development of IT. Thank you. I am not going to impose a time limit for the first round. First, Martin Liao and then Sin Chung Kai. Martin Liao. Chairman, all along, the SAR government has been working hard to promote Hong Kong amongst the leading IT companies in the world, hoping that they can come and set up their base and also have strategic transfer of technology. But then in terms of support and also attracting international collaboration by the ITC, the ITC has failed to offer sufficient incentive. So can you consider offering tax incentive so that overseas companies or enterprises would be investing in the I&T sector in Hong Kong? I support your proposal. I support your proposal that there should be tax concessions, but then I am afraid that would be rather difficult for the Commissioner to answer because this is not within her purview. We will have to approach Professor K.C. Chan for that. Yes, that's within the purview of Professor Chan. But then in terms of it attracting more overseas enterprises to come to Hong Kong, that's definitely within our portfolio. And next week, we're going to have main influence by introducing this for companies with more than 100 people. We are not supposed to provide them with any support for in-house research. That's why for international or multinationals, if they come to Hong Kong and if they do not want to collaborate with local research centers or universities in engaging in R&D, and if they want to do it on their own in-house, then we will not be able to offer them any support at all. But then under the SERAP, we have this 100 limit, and we propose that should be lifted and that should be replaced by the enterprise support scheme, so that in future, so long as a company has been registered in Hong Kong, and if this is a multinational, and if they apply for financial support, then there would be no limit whatsoever, so that it would be supported on a 1:5 ratio. And a few years ago, we also consider whether or not we should offer any tax incentives, but then we don't want to complicate the simple tax system or taxation system. That's why we allow the ITC to offer this cash rebate system or scheme. So it's not 100% rebate, but then if they spend $100 on R&D, then we will be giving them back $35. So whether they are able to make it a success, we will still be offering this cash rebate, and after a few years, this has been remarkably successful, and therefore, under the enterprise support scheme, we'll be doing a lot of international promotion. So that after the calculation, in fact, if they are willing to come to Hong Kong to conduct R&D, in fact, there would be a lot of financial incentives. So it's not for me to do it or to introduce it, but then we can always offer them some attractive terms. And also if they come to Science Park, we have been working very hard to do publicity internationally, and many R&D companies have come to Hong Kong. And with your permission, can I ask the Deputy Commissioner to supplement? Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman. For example, for larger companies, well, she also referred to Science Park, and they also have a scheme, and it's entitled Soft Landing. And what does that entail? For example, they'll approach renowned R&D institutions in the US and UK, so they would also reach a collaboration agreement with these universities. And if they have to come to Hong Kong, it's a long distance and it might be a big gap, but then if they really want to come and develop, then under the soft landing program, they can also have some pioneers who will come first, and they will come to Science Park for the time being, and then they will see whether or not the business environment and also the potential partners are good. And we have already lowered the threshold, so they do not have to rent the place, they do not have to set up a company first, so they can just come and take a look. So it's like the incubator program. So we will offer assistance to these new arrivals. So it's a soft landing. So is it for free? Well, basically it's for free, but then there are some limitations. You cannot stay there for a long time, and also it would be just a no-frill office setting, and as a landing point, so we have approached Oxford, Cambridge, and also the Imperial College and so on. So we have reached agreement with these universities to help these budding companies or new startups. And then for major companies, the Science Park has also spent no effort in terms of promoting the Science Park with these companies. For example, via the VTC, they have, via the TDC, they have also participated in road shows to attract these IT companies to come to Hong Kong. As we have said in the presentation, that is, in the Science Park, we can offer certain support, and also in which areas Hong Kong can be rather strong, and some of our universities have also been doing a lot of work in those areas. So after listening to those presentations, these companies might be interested in investing in Science Park and doing R&D here. Next, Sin Chung Kai. Mr. Kwong Chi Kin is no longer a electrical member. He has left for years, and I am not related to him at all. All right, Commissioner, this is a comprehensive review, and of course I welcome that, and to attract more foreign investors to come is of course good, but then how do you prevent them from just coming here to do some cream trimming? In other words, they are here only for the benefit, but there is no commitment whatsoever. Not whatsoever. So I'd like to look at your overall financial position. You've not talked about asking for additional funding, and of course these days it's difficult to get funding approval. But then what about your financial position, and what are your plans in the future? Commissioner, thank you, Mr. Sin, for your questions. We still have $250 million left in the fund. And of course, we take that very seriously. In fact, we've been doing our projections, and within the administration, we are going to have an internal discussion, and in due course, I have to come to the Finance Committee to seek member support if I need new money. Probably I'll need that sometime in the future. So I'll need to get some new money in order to do it, so I'll definitely be coming back. But Mr. Sin, so for how long can that $250 million last? So by middle of next year. So we are actually working very hard to do the projection. So that would last you until the middle of next year. So we hope that we can sort out everything before the end of this year with the support of members. And also, we also hope that the large companies will not just be here to do some cream trimming. When we do the vetting, we would attach a lot of importance to the number of local students that they're going to hire, and how many jobs can be created, and what kind of positive impact there will be on the Hong Kong economy. So all in all, we will have to look at it from the Hong Kong perspective to see if their arrival or coming will be helpful to Hong Kong's IT development. In fact, I'm in a dilemma as to whether or not I should ask these questions, because in Hong Kong there are some 70% of the master degree program students. In other words, these are postgraduate students, and they are engaging in scientific studies, and most of these, some 70% of them are mainland students. So we are actually borrowing other places' talents, and they might be here for a few years. After completing their master degree program, they'll go back to the mainland. So how do we retain these talents? Indeed, we have a lot of difficulties. But then if you are talking about the local employment situation, of course that would be an indicator. But, well, I personally think that is very difficult. Still, we have to insist on holding on to this policy, or else the economic basis for Hong Kong is a bit too narrow. Yes, I think IT is a very broad subject. There is no national boundary. So long as there are talents, we would welcome them. So next year we'll be conducting another review on the nurturing of talents and see how we can retain them. And for the university collaboration program, we're going to extend that from 2 years to 3 years. So that's the UICP, because according to some universities, for the postgraduate program or doctoral degree program, they would normally last for 3 years instead of 2. So for these postdoc students, after they have completed the project, if they are able to get the enterprise support program, then their bosses would then be able to start a company with them. And we have to be realistic and pragmatic. We have to look at the reward and how many good jobs there are. So that's why I was saying that next year, or in the next 2 or 3 years, we will have to work very closely with the business sector, because we cannot just rely on the public sector or the government to provide the support. So even if we fund such programs, we have to support these companies who can get started, and then they will gradually be able to build a strong footing. That's why we have got funding for the universities, so that if they are able to start IT companies, then we will be giving them support. And the most important indicator would be the number of jobs that can be created, and also the wages or the remuneration has to be attractive. So that will be what we'll be doing in the next few years. Yes, next time, Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. Well, Commissioner, she is most happy when she is here, because everybody is treating her as if she's a treasure. But then still, we think that we haven't done enough. That's why for many years this council has been saying that we have not done enough. And when we go overseas, people would also say that we have not done enough. And of course, Mr. Chairman, I'm not saying that you are too slim.
So at the beginning, you had 5 billion, and then I understand that over $8 billion have been spent. But Hong Kong is such an affluent place. How come we haven't spent more lavishly, so to speak, in this respect? I understand that you're worried about criticisms, and that's why you have been relying mainly on the tertiary sector. And you've said that people are looking forward to the Small Entrepreneur Research Assistance Program. I think what is important is that you disperse the money fairly. And do you think, Commissioner, that more money should be spent to promote I&C in Hong Kong? Yes, Chairman. In fact, my colleagues have said that, in fact, I am really a lucky official, because I have always enjoyed members' support for my work. It's true that we haven't really done enough. In fact, 4 to 5 years ago, when I assumed office, there were many good reports, but then not a lot of the outcome was commercialized. So ITC used to be primarily a fund allocating department. Now we are trying to do matchmaking between our R&D centers and government departments, as well as the private sector. We want to bake a bigger and bigger pie. In the initial years, money was spent, but then not too much was realized and commercialized. I think the situation has improved over the past few years. In fact, I think members do understand that it's difficult to really achieve that critical mass because the base is small. We now want to identify more people, more organizations that are interested in R&D. With regard to the $200 million, of course, this is not all that we'll be spending. So we will have to come to the panel and to the council for more support to further promote R&D. Ms. Lau said that civil servants were worried that they might be criticized by the Director of Audit. But I hope that members will understand that as far as investment in R&D or I&T is concerned, we should not only be pursuing cost effectiveness. In fact, my colleagues assess the applications and collective decisions are made to make sure that the money allocated is well spent. Yes, of course, I agree that the money has to be spent carefully and wisely. But then I think we should adopt a bolder approach to nurture I&T. I understand that you'll not win each and every game, so to speak, but I believe Hong Kong can afford it. But we haven't been spending enough on I&T and R&D, and as a result, we are losing out. So how can we break this stalemate? True, Chairman. When the ITF was set up, we decided to fund projects. And then we were supply-led, so to speak. When a scientist said that he wanted to carry out a research project, we provided the funding. Now we are adopting a demand-led approach. And we are now looking at demands driven by an aging society. The Jockey Club, the Labour and Welfare Bureau, the Elderly Commission, chaired by Professor Chen, and also the Housing Authority. We are now working with them to try to explore the use of I&T to satisfy the demands arising from an aging population. But of course, there are difficulties. I have begun to understand the operation of RCHEs. There are definitely difficulties to be overcome. And then one project may cost us a few $1 million, $10 million, but then we'll have to wait for a year or two before we can see some outcome. Because of the rise of the East, in 2 decades' time, there will be a lot of civil aviation routes flying to and from the East. And so there will be a huge demand for aircraft maintenance. In fact, Boeing and Polytechnic U have been carrying out R&D in this regard. We have already approved a total of $50 million. I understand that in the under the FC requirement, the ceiling per project is $30 million. But then we hope that through providing funding for a number of projects, we can ultimately build a center of excellence for aircraft maintenance here. Now, the ITC is not the VTC. We hope that the Commission can come up with high-tech inventions. You may only succeed in 2 out of 10 projects, but then the 2 successful projects will bring us a lot of revenue. Thank you. Mr. Lowai Kwok. The ITC is seldom criticized by members. The reason is simple. If you look at developed economies or developing economies worldwide, they all regard I&T as the key to enhancing competitiveness. In fact, the government and the mainland invests a lot in I&T. And then for the 4 small dragons, or should I say, let me talk about the other 3 dragons. They, in fact, have invested a lot in I&T, and they have excelled in this area, and Hong Kong is really lagging behind in this regard. And concerning I&T, I think in Hong Kong, the government pays lip service to this. We always say that we welcome I&T, but when the opportunities come, we shy away from them. I can remember some years ago there were Taiwanese firms which were willing to invest in foundry in Hong Kong. But then at that time, the SAR government was not bold enough to support the establishment of the factory in Hong Kong, and as a result, the factory was set up in Shanghai, and in fact, I think you can see that clustering effect there. And then let me give another example. Phase 4 of Science Park. Phase 3 had 22 hectares. And there was rapid development. Many companies were interested. Many companies, in fact, have already moved in. I need to declare interest. I am a director of the board of the Science Park, but I want to say that it's purely volunteer service. I don't get any pay from this job, but I'm just eager to see I&T development in Hong Kong. So 8 hectares was allocated to Science Park for Phase 4. So that was in the OZP, but then sometime later, the zoning in OZP for that area was changed to medium density residential development. So on the one hand, the government wants to set up an I&T bureau. On the other hand, it has decided to change the land for I&T to medium density residential development. So is Mr. Paul Chan willing to change the land use zoning on the OZP back to I&T again? And I believe the Commissioner can't answer this question. And so $5 billion was secured. We, in fact, hope that the government would spend the money as soon as possible. And then with the interest, so that there was a total of $8.9 billion. And this amount was spent over a 15-year period. So if we compare ourselves with other economies, our investment in I&T as a percentage of GDP is really very, very low. Commissioner, you are telling us that you have to come to this council for funding again. My alliance supports your funding application. So can the money be spent more speedily? And for the R&D centers, the S3, can they carry out more projects? And can we set up more R&D centers so that in the coming 15 years we can progress more speedily? So Mr. Low is asking you to try to step up your work. I think this is a consensus among the I&T sector. And we hope that you can come to us for funding soon. Mr. Low feels that you have been spending the money too slowly. I want to say that the money should be spent speedily and at the same time in a cost-effective manner. Chairman, thank you. In fact, we want to spend the money speedily, but then we have to make sure that the applicants can satisfy reasonable standards. I think the problem is that we don't have enough fish in the pond. In the early stage, we relied heavily on the universities. The professors have been involved in R&D for years, and so I think it's important that there should be more companies in the private sector which show an interest.
For phase 4 of Science Park, yes, indeed, what you said was a problem. But then Dr. Low has told us on various occasions, but then it doesn't mean that after completing phase 3, we are not going to do anything at all. And we also have new clients. That's why the Science Park's Board of Directors is now conducting a review. So fortunately, initially we did not develop with a high-density development plan. So I'll be deferring to Mr. Wong, who will give you more details about this. With regard to Science Park, concerning their long-term direction, whether or not there might be fewer companies and so on. Well, all the options are open. And then for the 5 science parks R&D centers, well, we are now submitting a review report, and by June next year, we're going to do another detailed review, because the funding given to them will be exhausted in March 2017, and therefore we have to conduct a comprehensive review on that. And with your agreement, I'll defer to Mr. Wong. In fact, even without phase 4, it should be okay. We should still be able to make things work. Well, between the ITC and the board of the Science Park, we are looking into this in developing phase 3 in order to make the best use of land. We have not really made use of the land available under phase 3, because we have noticed that even without using up the entire area of phase 3, we have asked for funding from this council for building some 105,000 square meters of GFA for the office building, and we have not exhausted the funding, and yet we have already completed that, and therefore we'll be sorting that out with the Science Park to see what we can do with the excess money or the surplus. As the Commissioner just said, For the unused land in phase 3, there is already space for us to have flexibility in our future development, and we do not rule the possibility that in due course we can also review the situation with regard to phase 1 and 2 of Science Park. Would there be space available where we can make use of in order to make the best use of very precious land resources in Hong Kong and near Pak Shek Kok? Well, Mr. Low referred to a site which was reserved for the Science Park. As we need a lot of land for housing development, that's why after the relevant departments and the TPP have taken a look at the site recently, it's been turned into residential site, because they are of the view that Science Park still has some room for development. And for phase 1, for the 105,000 square meters of GFA, that should be enough for us to run all the way up to 2017-18. So in the meantime, we will also be looking at the further development after 2017-18 in terms of office space. We will make sure that sufficient space will be made available for continuous development by companies stationed in the Science Park. Sorry, you haven't imposed any time limit. Can I add a few words? Please be brief. Well, just now, after listening to the explanation by the Deputy Commissioner, I'd like to add this. Well, Science Park has to achieve this clustering effect, because in other places, if you have to identify a site for other companies to set up their bases here, well, in Pak Shek Kok, we have such a nice setting, and there is already a clustering effect, and if you can expand it in situ, I think it would be a lot better than identifying a separate site elsewhere to do it. That's why people from the science sector are strongly against the rezoning of the site in Pak Shek Kok into a housing site. That's the reason why they are so strongly against it. I don't know if you're able to change that, but then this is the opposition view and also the rationale behind it, and I'd like to clarify that here. All right, thank you. Next, An Chiang. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the ITF, I support that. And in fact, if you had been able to launch it in the 80s, that would have been a lot better, because that was a time when the community in Hong Kong was restructuring, and we strongly needed more government support for us to conduct more R&D. And now many factories have moved northward across the boundary. And I've been telling Jeanette this. All right, I'm a practical person. So after getting the funding of billions of dollars, we have provided sponsorship to universities, and we have supported their R&D projects and so on. But then to what extent have we been able to add value to our economy? Because Hong Kong needs some new products and also some state-of-the-art technology to help boost our economy so that we can diversify our economic structure. So it's not just about getting another $5 billion. If we have a project which is a huge success, then even if we have to spend $50 billion on that, we should be spending it. But then, well, industries are now only accounting for some 1% of our GDP, and in the past it used to take up 30-40% of our GDP. Very rarely will industries be taking up such a small portion of the GDP of a particular country. Well, that's a fact. And recently we also have the Occupy movement there are fewer visitors, and it has seriously affected our service sector and the hotel industry. They are complaining because they are suffering. So other than the hotel industry, the service sector, and also the financial sector, what else do we have? So through your sponsorship program and through the ITF, how can we develop the other sectors? I hope that next time before you come to ask for additional funding, you will have to show us the picture so we can have a better idea. All right, you also said that there would be contributions from these projects. So maybe you can give us more details, and you've also given us some examples about the Chinese Use project. All right, that's for pregnant women to conduct tests on Down syndrome on their fetus to see if they might be prone to suffering from Down syndrome. All right, it's a collaboration project with the US, but then what benefit can it bring to Hong Kong people? And they are not able to enjoy it at all. And if they have to do the test, they will have to pay some $7,000 for that. And in some private hospitals, all right, they will still have to do an injection before they can do the test. And many pregnant women would not be willing to run the risk of a miscarriage, because in any case, if you have to do the test, and if they can do it at public hospitals, then they'll be able to pay a lot less. So just $3,000 will do. All right. Our economy has not grown because of that, and Hong Kong people have not benefited. And also in terms of nurturing of talents, I don't see what you have done in attracting more talents to come to Hong Kong. So I don't really see any real benefit. So $5 billion would be quite a waste if that's the case. So at least you will have to convince me that you have done something so that I can see the future. I can see what it's going to bring about. All right, for the 5 R&D centers, do they include pharmaceutical studies and healthcare and medical researchers? I think Ms. Ann Chiang's suggestion is that we should focus more on medical research. Well, the idea of the ITF is what the Chinese saying says that, well, this is to throw this out in order to attract something in return. That's why we try to lower the threshold in order to attract people to come and do it. Because when compared to the real estate sector, indeed, it's not very profitable. And also for the younger people, even if they fail, they will still be able to gain the experience, and that would be invaluable. With regard to economic benefit, I can give you some figures to illustrate that. Well, in 2001, if you look at the R&D talents, we have only about 10,000, and now it's 2010. Well, we have this latest figure is 25,000. So there is a time gap before we can get a figure. So in terms of IT talents, yes, we have benefited from that. And also, as far as Science Park is concerned, in the past, it used to be a water body, and it's built on reclamation. And for 10 years, we have now got 450 companies set up in Science Park, and phase 3 will last until 2016. And upon completion, we should have another 150 companies stationed there. Yes, I've been to Science Park. Indeed, I know many people who are working there, and we know very well what it is all about. This is also a property development project. Yes, you have this condition, that is that it has to be related to science and IT. But then as far as I'm concerned, I think this is just a property development project. Is no different from Cyberport, and so long as your name has anything to suggest that it has to do with IT, you can go in, and I don't see how it can benefit our economy. Well, for companies going into Science Park, yes, many people would like to go in, and therefore we have to do an assessment on the extent that they are engaged in IT. And also you have this Chinese Use research on the DNA study on Down syndrome. Well, maybe Dr. Tam can supplement on this. Dr. Cecilia Pang can supplement. She's the biotechnology director. Yes, the Chinese U has developed this technology to to make early diagnosis on Down syndrome on pregnant women. So in fact, for the overseas patent, it has not been like before it licensed the patent to the U.S. company. It was done here, and the Chinese U has also maintained the patent right in the mainland and Hong Kong. And I understand that the Chinese U team has now started a company and is opened on the mainland, and they're planning to commercialize the technology so that it can be made available in the market. And in terms of application, the hospital authority has already decided to adopt this technology for use in pregnant women who are older in age, and they are of high risk, and so this technology will be used in Hong Kong gradually. The reason why there is a time delay, that's because for any diagnostic technology that has to be applied, we have to do a lot of validation. But then initially we did not have sufficient clinical data for use by this research team. But then as far as I'm aware, the problem has been resolved already. All right, I'm glad to hear that this technology is called T21. There is a chance that it may be used in Hong Kong, in particular, if they can be made available to pregnant women going to the public hospitals. I think that would be good, and to start up a new company in Hong Kong would also be a good idea. But then my advice is that, well, we have seen that there are 4,000 plus projects being funded. In fact, if you add that up, individual projects are not getting too much. So why can't you just put the money together and spread it on some worthy projects? So I think we should be using the smallest amount of land, and then if we are able to nurture the largest number of talents, I think that would be worthy of our while. So you will have to look at a few areas. Let's say we'll be concentrating on a handful of issues and projects, and then if you are working on those areas, then I'll be giving you funding, so that we'll be focusing on some of these projects, so that whether or not we are talking about doctoral or postdoc students and so on, of course we will also have to nurture more talents in Hong Kong.
You look at the election in the U.S. and the election in Europe earlier on. They said they supported the development of biochemistry, development of high-tech medical products. So also in future we may choose to eat less, buy less new clothing, but then we need medicine and medical treatment. So let's focus on 2 or 3 areas. In Finland and Norway, they're developing mobile phones. South Korea has also done a good job, but for South Korea, we've only heard about Samsung. Then Japan started off producing very good household appliances. So I know Japan was not able to do as well as South Korea and the U.S. concerning mobile phones. So I think we shouldn't be too ambitious. Let's just identify a few areas, 8 to 10 at most. These are areas of technological development that are needed for the future. And then one thing is very important, and that is the companies must have commercialization proposals and track records. It's no use just carrying out research. the estuary has invented hundreds of items, and many trademarks have been registered. A lot of money has been spent on registering the trademarks. But then only a few items have been commercialized. So we shouldn't really repeat that mistake. No, you have to make sure that the factories think that that the research outcome can be commercialized. Because if you can't commercialize the outcome, then you won't be able to produce the goods. You won't be able to nurture the talents. All right, you've spent over 15 minutes. Oh, was I so long-winded? Yes, sorry, because I was really I'm really too concerned about this matter. Yes, I think both the depth and the breadth of the research are important. So biotechnology, e-commerce, these will be areas of focus for the future. And in fact, when our R&D centers invite applications, we do make clear our priority areas. 2 to 3 years ago, we changed our scoring scheme. And one item was the chance of commercialization. But before the change, commercialization was not on the list of for scoring. Chairman, Chairman, should there be a public hearing before the $5 billion is approved? Now, first of all, I want to say that the amount may be more than $5 billion, or it may be less than $5 billion. We don't know what the exact amount is going to be. Last time, the amount was $5 billion. But I think you have put forward a very good idea. I think the Bureau needs to tell us how the money can be spent effectively. Ms. Emily Lau, I want to ask a question about the talents. According to the Commissioner, anti-talents increased from over 10,000 to over 20,000. But in Hong Kong, we're not able to attract the top talents. So is it that we can do more in this regard? Yes, of course. So is it that Hong Kong is totally unattractive to talents, or is it that we in fact should be able to attract some talents? We do try to attract companies and talents from universities to come to Hong Kong. I think the Deputy Commissioner can give members some figures. Thank you. I thank Ms. Lau for her question. I'll give members 2 sets of figures. In 2012, in Hong Kong, about 25,000 people were involved in INT. R&D centers were set up in 2006, and we have over 700 high caliber talents in these R&D centers. So since the establishment of these centers in 2006, these talents have helped us with a lot of projects. And then we also have intern researchers. We want to nurture the younger generation. So for engineering and science graduates, we offer internships for them. So for each ITF funded project, there are 2 internship posts lasting for 2 years. And so every year, over 300 graduates benefit from this internship program. In 2012, we had about 700 experts working in our R&D centers. And when after they have left R&D centers, some start their own businesses, some continue with R&D work. And out of these interns, some of them choose to continue with R&D work. So you can see that we have been nurturing INT talents for Hong Kong. The number has increased from about 10,000 to over 20,000. So we have our universities, our R&D centers, and the public sector giving a lot of support to our young people. But I'm talking about whether Hong Kong can attract talents from elsewhere. Is Hong Kong attractive enough? Now, I believe for the top talents, they have many better choices than Hong Kong. I haven't set a time limit on members' questions and answers, but then he didn't answer my question. His answer was irrelevant. I don't have the figures concerning talents from elsewhere. So is it that nobody has come? No. But out of the 400 odd companies in the science park, about 30% of them are overseas companies. But of course, they have been registered under Hong Kong laws. But out of the 400 companies in the science park, about 30% of them are overseas companies or multinational companies. Of course, they do hire local talents, but they have also brought in overseas talents. So I'll go back and check whether we have such a breakdown, but I don't have such figures with me. All right, Ms. N. Chang, and then after you've asked your question, we will move on to the next item. Yes, Chairman. Yes, I think the Commissioner can give me a reply later. So we've supported over 4,000 projects. We've spent over $8 billion. And out of these projects, there are some very successful ones. I would like to know how much has been allocated to these successful projects. And is it that the other projects are unsuccessful? Is it that the success rate is 5%? Is it that the remaining 95% are all unsuccessful? I just want to have the figures. Commissioner, can you provide the information to Ms. Chang? Yes, Chairman. I can remember that one of the companies started off having 2 people only, but I understand that it has now expanded into the mainland. All right. So I can have the figures after the meeting. But can I ask one more question? Yes, please be quick. Yes, Chairman. Is it that at the next meeting we'll discuss funding of injection into the ITF? The next meeting will be held at 2:30 on the 16th of December. and we'll be discussing fees and charges under the TID and the launching of the enterprise support scheme under the ITF to replace the SERAP, S-E-R-A-P. Chairman, I really think that when we discuss the funding, or before we discuss the funding, they should carry out some research because there are some products which cannot be produced in the mainland. All right. In fact, before you came in, we had already decided what we would discuss next time. And also, Chairman, I understand that there are items which cannot be produced in the mainland, but yet there is a demand for such items in the mainland. And so I think the technology and the production can be in Hong Kong. And as a result, the items can be included in the CEPA list. Do you know what I mean? I believe you know what I mean. I think you have to approach Greg So for CEPA. This is not the right forum. Now, Chairman, this is the only way that we can diversify products produced in Hong Kong. I will not let this chance go. In fact, that's why I'm here. And in fact, I've been pursuing the matter for an hour. All right. So, Commissioner, please prepare all the relevant information for us before you come to us for funding support. Yes, Chairman. All right. Next item, application of the protocol relating to the Madrid Agreement concerning the international registration of marks to the Hong Kong SAR. So let's invite the officials in. We have with us Ms. Patricia So, PAS for Commerce and Economic Development, Ms. Ada Leung, Director of Intellectual Property,
Ms. Connie Law, Acting Assistant Director of Intellectual Property Registration, as Ms. Madeline Ling, Principal Intellectual Property Examiner, all female officers. Remarkable. Okay, can we ask the officials to walk us through the papers, and afterwards, if we have any questions, members will raise them. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to briefly go through the paper that we have provided. It's about the proposed application of the protocol relating to the Madrid Agreement concerning the international registration of marks to the Hong Kong SAR. There is a consultation exercise because together with the Intellectual Property Office, starting from last week, we're going to conduct a 3-month consultation exercise on the proposed application of the protocol relating to the Madrid Agreement to see if it should be applied to Hong Kong. We'd like to listen to public views on this. Under the current system, well, for trademark, is usually subject to geographic restriction. In other words, each jurisdiction would be looking at its own practice and legal system to determine whether or not they would accept certain trademarks registration. So it's territorial in nature, and for trademark holder, if they want to be protected in a particular country, then they will have to separately apply for the registration separately in individual countries. But then under the Madrid Agreement, the relevant holder of trademarks, if they want to get trademark protection in a particular country, all they need to do is to submit one single application through one single language, and then through joining the system, they'll be able to get the protection. And under the Madrid system, well, Hong Kong has not acceded to the system, and after our initial study and assessment, we believe that if we were to introduce a system to Hong Kong, there would be advantages for Hong Kong. In particular, economically, there should be an overall benefit for Hong Kong. And in our consultation document, we have also set out that the factors we have taken into account, and also what the advantages of the system are. In fact, the Madrid system involves two conventions. One is the one is the international registration of marks, or the Madrid Agreement, and the other one is the Madrid Protocol. And on this occasion, we are only applying the Madrid Protocol to Hong Kong, and we have already explained why. We believe that we are only applying the Madrid Agreement to Hong Kong, because so long as we can apply one of them to Hong Kong, the Madrid system will already be applied in Hong Kong. Well, if you look at the advantages of the Madrid system, as we have said, so long as you can make one single application in one language, then it can apply to different places. We believe that through the application of this system, the procedural saving will be beneficial. And once you get the trademark registration, the trademark holder will then be able to extend it to other countries. For example, if he has already got an international registration, then if there are more countries participating in the Madrid system, then the trademark registration will then be extended to these new signatory countries. And in the consultation document, and also in the CIP paper, we have already set out that according to our initial assessment, we believe that so long as we can apply the Madrid Protocol to Hong Kong, it would be adequate, because under the Madrid Protocol, when compared to the Madrid Agreement, there are more benefits and conveniences. In terms of the trademark office, in dealing with the application, the time limit, and also the fee charging mechanism, there would be more flexibility. And also, as far as the applicants are concerned, they would also enjoy more convenience. They do not have to wait till after they have got the registration in the place of origin before they can apply for it. So during the application stage, he can make use of the international registration, and then he can apply for international registration. In fact, the Madrid Protocol was already founded in 1998, and some 91 countries, including the EU, are now participants of the protocol. We understand that Indonesia, Malaysia, and these are ASEAN countries, and they'll be joining the protocol by 2015. And all in all, we believe that the benefits of the system is that there would be a more efficient trademark registration and management system, and at the same time, it would also help enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness as a place for business, because for many overseas trademark owners or companies, if they want to develop their business in Hong Kong, and if they want to get trademark protection here in Hong Kong, so long as they can join the protocol, then that would be more, they would be able to save a lot of time. And we've also received some business associations inquiries that without the protocol being applied to Hong Kong, they would defer their transactions involving international trademark registrations, and that would also undermine the credibility of Hong Kong as an international business hub. And after the protocol has applied to Hong Kong, that would also facilitate local businesses to explore global business opportunities, so that they would find it easier to venture overseas to exploit the international market, because they would be able to get the protection. And if we want to become an IP trading hub internationally, that would also help, because we are actually promoting a lot of the patent business in Hong Kong, and once we join this protocol, we will be able to provide one-stop service in terms of trademark registration and management, and that would also help consolidate our international image. In particular, we would then have a comprehensive regime in terms of trademark protection. Well, after turning to the benefits, we have also looked at the downside for the system. What would people be affected? Well, some people might be affected, and for some agents or trademark agents, they might have some reservation because the number of applications which are channeled through them might be reduced, and therefore they are concerned. We do understand their anxiety, but at the same time, we believe that we can talk to these trademark agents, and we can explain to them that if we implement this new mechanism, then the benefit to Hong Kong's economy will be significant. And also, after we have implemented this international registration system for other trademark holders, there will be more of those trademark holders coming to Hong Kong to do the registration, and if their applications have encountered any difficulties, if there is objection to that, there will be some local litigation procedures, and these agents will also be able to provide some expert or professional service, and therefore such demand might increase. And also, some of our major trade partners have already implemented the system, and for Hong Kong applicants, if they work in Australia, Japan, the EU, Singapore, UK, or the US, in fact, there are quite a number of such applications filed in these jurisdictions. For instance, in 2012, there are already some 4,000 applications filed in these jurisdictions. That's why the trademark agents in Hong Kong should be able to see an increase in the demand for their services. So other than consulting the public, on the benefits and the actual implications of implementing the Madrid Protocol in Hong Kong, and also the actual arrangements for extending that to Hong Kong, we will also be consulting the public. That is between the mainland and Hong Kong, should there be any facilitation measures to facilitate Hong Kong trademark holders to apply for trademark registration on the mainland, and vice versa. So do we have to put in place separate arrangements to facilitate such applications between the two places? With regard to the arrangements between mainland China and Hong Kong, that would also be included in the consultation document. We have already conducted some initial study and provided some analysis in the consultation document. So all in all, that's the highlight of the consultation document, and we'd like to listen to members' views on that. All right, thank you. 3 members, and they've all raised their hands. Okay. Is China a signatory to the Madrid Protocol? Yes, indeed. China is a signatory to both the Madrid Agreement and Madrid Protocol. All right. First, Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I'd also like to thank the director who called me last week, and she also talked to me about this. And many of our trade partners are already signatories to the protocol, and that would also be beneficial to our economy. So I was asking the director who would likely be opposed to this, and as the director just explained, and she already explained that with a bigger pie there would be more business, and therefore they should not be over worried. So director, can you tell us a bit more, according to your understanding, if you think that there is a lot of benefit to this, but then if people think that their interest might be undermined, then who are they, and is their worry justified? Or is it that the development will actually be beneficial to them as well? Well, I understand that you said a small group of people might think that their interests might be affected. But then as far as I know, for people engaged in this trade, either in terms of companies or lawyers, there aren't that many. Do you have the figures with you, Chairman? To answer Ms. Lau's question and the Chair's question, well, for traders, that would also include the legal practitioners and also trademark agents. They might not be lawyers themselves. We have come into contact with them on a regular basis, and for those who might be making applications with the trademark office of the IPD, there are some 80% of the applications being filed via these trademark agents. So there are quite a number of people involved in the practice, because we are talking about some 37,000 plus last year, and this year we are expecting some 39,000. So some 80% of them are done through agents, and most of them would be lawyers as far as we are aware. As to who would likely be opposed to this, well, in fact, these agents are not really against it. They are just concerned that their business might be affected. But then at the same time, they also know through our contacts that they know that this is an international trend. Some 91 countries are already implementing it. And if it would have a huge impact on their business, we have also considered and done some research on other jurisdictions. So is it that there will be fewer such applications? In fact, that's not true. In many countries, in fact, the number of applications continue to rise. So even for local applications in some countries, actually the number has been going up. And that would also depend on a number of factors. It depends on the economic situation of the jurisdiction, and also in some places. Indeed, for local applications, the number might have come down, but then for international registration, that is the number continue to rise, and therefore for the latter part of the work, if there is any rejection of application, or if there are any difficulties, then they might need the service of these agents.
Ms. Ann Chang, thank you, Chairman. Understand that the Bureau has said that Hong Kong should develop IP trading. So what will be the implications of the application of the protocol to Hong Kong to IP trading in Hong Kong? And then second, many Hong Kong people have encountered difficulties registering their trademarks in the mainland. First of all, the process is time-consuming, and secondly, even very famous brands may have difficulties registering in the mainland. This is because some have already registered very similar trademarks in the mainland already. So will the Madrid protocol be able to help the business sector in this regard? Yes, Chairman, thank you. The protocol mainly provides convenience with regard to the procedures. So only one application is required for multinational trademark registrations. And then the change of names, renewal, transformation, all these can be dealt with under one single application. But then concerning the protection that people can get in a country for trademarks, and whether the trademarks can be registered, but that's outside the protocol. So it really depends on how the mainland protects trademark holders, how it makes use of its legal and judicial procedures to resolve the disputes. And the protocol cannot deal with what trademarks are registrable, and what if others have already registered similar trademarks. I think the main concern is whether trademarks can be registered in the mainland. And so will this protocol mean that local businessmen will be able to register their trademarks in the mainland more quickly? I think the answer should be yes, Chairman. Now, because the trademark office has to make a decision and give a reply to the International Bureau within a specified period of time. And so, concerning whether there is any refusal or objection in the country concerned, a reply has to be given to the International Bureau before a certain deadline. This is a practice in different jurisdictions. Yes, I understand your reply. Let me ask one more question. So will the protocol mean cheaper registration fees? Is it that the fees are not decided by the government? Now, when applicants come forward to apply, the Trademarks Office will charge a fee, and the fee will be fixed on a cost recovery principle. And for the International Bureau of the WIPO, it has done some of the vetting for us, and so we'll have to, in Hong Kong, deduct that cost from our fees. This is because some of the work has already been done by the International Bureau. For example, the classification of the trademarks, that part of the work is done by the International Bureau, not in Hong Kong. And trademark officers in different places will be able to achieve some savings in this regard. But and as to the actual amount saved, we haven't really calculated the amount yet. But the fees will definitely be lower than the fees for local applications, because some of the vetting will have been done by the International Bureau of the WIPO. And so a trademark office will only charge the applicants for the remaining work. Now, I understand that you do publish a table of fees and charges, but very often applicants apply through lawyers and agents. My impression is that lawyers and agents charge much more than the trademark office does. And so, whether the fees you charge will be lower is immaterial, because I understand that the charges collected by the lawyers and the agents are much higher. So I think the burden of the trademark holders is dependent on the fees charged by lawyers and agents. Now, for the lawyers and agents, some of them charge higher fees, some charge lower fees. But then, at the moment, if one wants to register his trademark in 10 countries, one will have to approach 10 different trademark agents in the 10 different countries. But now, one application will be enough. Yes, that's true. Yes, that's true. That will help to bring down the cost. So, costs will go down because of this arrangement, Chairman. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Now, Chairman, I want to ask a question in relation to para 19 of the paper. Mention is made of Article 153 of the Basic Law. Article 153 of the Basic Law says that the application to the Hong Kong SAR of international agreements to which the PRC is or becomes a party shall be decided by the CPG in accordance with the circumstances and needs of the region, and after seeking the views of the government of the region. Can you please explain this to me? Hong Kong is not a state party to the Madrid Agreement and the Madrid Protocol. So in other words, our participation can only be through the PRC, and so we need the assistance of the CPG in this regard. So can you tell us the detailed procedure? Yes, thank you, Mr. Sin. The PRC is a state party to the agreement and to the protocol. It is a contracting party to both the agreement and the protocol. Article 153 of the Basic Law is about how an international treaty or agreement can be extended to or applied to Hong Kong. In fact, we have been liaising with the relevant authorities in the mainland, especially the State Trademark Office. They understand that over 90 countries have signed the agreement and the protocol, and they understand that there is this demand for a one-stop service on the part of Hong Kong businessmen. But of course, we do understand the concerns of trademark agents in Hong Kong. So we have in fact reflected the concerns of the agents to the State Trademark Office, and of course we've also reflected the desire on the part of Hong Kong businessmen to have the protocol applied to Hong Kong. In the consultation document, we have stated that Hong Kong applicants will be able to make an application at the Hong Kong Trademark Office. And then international applicants can also rely on the Hong Kong Trademark Office to give those trademarks the protection they need that are needed in Hong Kong. So the state authorities are fully aware of our position, but of course we'll have to iron out all the concrete details with the International Bureau of the WIPO and with the State Trademark Office. So the CPG will formally notify the WIPO that the protocol be extended to the Hong Kong SAR, because when the PRC signed the protocol and the agreement, there was a rider to the effect that the two would not apply to the Hong Kong SAR and the Macau SAR. And so if the protocol is to be extended to the Hong Kong SAR, then the CPG will have to make a declaration to the WIPO on the extension of the protocol to Hong Kong. All right, Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong. Hong Kong is not a contracting party to the agreement or the protocol. In the past, UK signed the agreement and the protocol, and then they were exercised on Hong Kong. Now, the CPG has indicated that the Hong Kong and the Macau SARs would not be covered in the exercise. So when people make applications, will they prefer to make the application in a country and not in an SAR? Now, in fact, the UK acceded to the protocol only in 1995, and so the protocol was not applied to Hong Kong before 1997. After 1997, the PRC signed the protocol and the agreement, but they have not been formally extended to Hong Kong. As if the protocol is to be applied to Hong Kong, then before that could happen, we'll have to have discussions with the WIPO. For example, an international applicant may make an international application in the US, and the application may specify the PRC, Hong Kong, and other countries, and the application will go to the International Bureau of WIPO. How can the application be channeled to Hong Kong? Through electronic means or what? And will the application be sent to Hong Kong directly by electronic means or through the state trademark office? So we'll have to iron out the exact details with the International Bureau of the WIPO. And then as to whether applicants of international registrations can designate the mainland, Hong Kong, and other countries, and then whether Hong Kong applicants can use local application as a base for international applications, we will have, or we have had some preliminary discussions with the IB and the state organizations.
So international trademark applicants can come to Hong Kong, and local applicants can also go elsewhere via Hong Kong. With regard to how the form should be designed and what the procedures should be, well, those will have to be ironed out. So for the specific details, those can only be sorted out later. But then as far as the basic law is concerned, Hong Kong does have the right to join international institutions. So it's like the International Civil Aviation Agreement. But my question is about the 3-month consultation period. When would it start? And then after the consultation is over, when will we be able to really set up a framework? Because to me, this is something good. And I'm sure the trade has been looking forward to this for a long time, and therefore, the sooner it can be put in place, so that it will be recognized by most places in the world, that the better. Because in the past, there had been a lot of anxieties about this. So can you be more specific about the time frame? Well, the consultation started last week on the 11th, on November the 11th, and that will end on the 11th of February next year. So it's a 3-month exercise, and then we'll be talking to stakeholders, including chambers of commerce and also trademark agents, the legal practitioners industry, to inform them of the benefits of the Madrid system, and we'll be listening to their views. And after completing the public consultation exercise, after we have collected public opinions, and if they are raw in general support of that, once a decision is taken to move ahead with this, we have to amend the legislation. We also have to upgrade the computer system. We also have to train up our people. So from the time when the decision is taken to the time when we can commence the system, it will take about 3 or 4 years. 3 or 4 years, yes. Because we have to amend the trademark ordinance through this council, and also the trademark rules and regulations. And then at the same time, we also have to upgrade our computer system and do the training for our staff. And we also have to talk to the IB and also our state intellectual property administration before we can implement it. Is there any room for further compressing the time frame? We will do it as fast as we could. But then when we sort out the details, if we just expeditiously do it, if we are able to reach an agreement on what the details should be, if it's in the benefit of Hong Kong, then of course we will be more than happy to do it. But then just amending the law, the trademark ordinance, would take some time. Yes, Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I'd just like to clarify the situation. All right. Hong Kong is not a party to the Madrid Protocol. Is that right? So in the future, do all applications, yes, they will be submitting their applications with the IPD, but then after we have joined the system, do they have to file their applications? All right, the benefit of joining the system is that once it's approved, everything will be included. But then, as a businessman, I would take it very seriously. All right, if I'm doing business in Canada, I'll be filing the application in Canada. But then once we join the system, does it mean that every time I will have to go there because we are not a signatory to the protocol? Do we have to go to the central authorities, and then the central authorities will then help us to access the Madrid system? So we cannot just access the system on our own. All right, once we join the Madrid system, the benefit is that once you get the approval or registration, it applies to everywhere. But then do we have to go, do we have to access the system through the central authorities? Do we continue to enjoy the right of accessing the system on our own? Well, I know nothing about this. That's why I have to clarify this with them. Well, maybe I have not made myself entirely clear. Well, the Madrid Protocol indeed would apply to sovereign countries only, and therefore Hong Kong does not have the right to join the system. So it's for China to accede to the agreement, and China is already a signatory. And the current situation is that China is already a signatory, and then it made a statement that it would not apply to Hong Kong, and if it wanted to apply it to Hong Kong, then all it needs to do is to make another declaration saying that it would apply to Hong Kong because it's already a signatory. But then it doesn't apply it to all the places under China. That's why that would resolve the problem of being a signatory or not. So we are not a signatory anyway. So only China is a signatory, but then whether or not it will apply to the different places is the decision of the central authorities. And now it has decided to apply it to Hong Kong, and therefore it's not a question of us not being a signatory. And then for future applications, if they want to go straight to Canada or elsewhere, they will still be able to go to that country to file the application. If they don't want to do so via the Madrid system, they can still go to the individual countries to file the application. We believe that some applicants might not want to do it through the Madrid system. For example, the market needs might be different. For example, in South Korea or Japan, their trademark might be in Korean or in Japanese, and in some countries it might be in English. Yes, it's the same trademark, but then the language is different, and therefore they would not be resorting to the Madrid system. And also, in some cases, the logo might be different. That's why they might not necessarily use the Madrid system. So there is that flexibility. So even if you join, and even if it applies, it doesn't mean that the applicant will have to do so via the IB. And if we have to go through the state intellectual property or trademark office, we don't necessarily have to resort to the system. And even if we want to do so via the system, for a Hong Kong trademark applicant, all he needs to submit is the registration that he has submitted to the Hong Kong Trademark Office instead of submitting it to the State Trademark Office. And the Madrid system has also made it clear that is, whoever you get the trademark protection, you will have to refer to the local legislation and also the trademark requirement in Hong Kong. In other words, it's for the Hong Kong Trademark Office to decide if the application would be approved. So it's not for the State Trademark Office to decide. And we would not be relying on the state's trademark legislation. We will be relying on our own legislation. As to whether we will have to access the system or communicate with the Madrid authorities via the state authorities, well, we will have to sort that out later. Is that clear? It's yes or no? It's yes and no, because her explanation is clear, but then she is not able to give us a definitive answer. Yes, that's my understanding too. Yes, I understand the explanation by the director. I believe that I got it, but then we will have to wait till all the details are sorted out. All right, to implement the Madrid Protocol, well, probably I have not read the document detailed enough. Does it require local legislation? Yes. By the time when you introduce local legislation, all the questions that are asked will be resolved. Is that right? I'm not able to give you a reply right now with regard to the detailed arrangements. For example, how should the application be filed, and through which channels will they reach different countries and so on. The future trademark law and the regulations, when they are amended, the picture will be clearer. All right, Director. At this stage, well, I think I am kind of reassured by your reply. So whatever is going to be put in place, it would not undermine what is available to the current trademark applicant. So through our country, if we were to extend the protocol to Hong Kong, the existing channels will remain open. So they will still be able to file their applications independently. So my concern is that if everything has to go through the central authorities, there might be some problems. I'm not suggesting that it must be bad. It's just that you will have to do it through the central authorities, and after you have sorted out all the details, by the time when you introduce local legislation, we'll be asking for further details. What's your role? Because you said that there would be this involvement of the IB, and their counterparty might be the State Trademark Administration rather than the Hong Kong Trademark Office. But then as far as Hong Kong's trademark applicants are concerned, their counterparty would be the Hong Kong Trademark Office. So how would their applications be channeled to the Madrid system via the international or the State Trademark Bureau? So I think by the time when you introduce local legislation, you will have to explain those in greater detail to us. Well, my impression is that it can only be good rather than bad by joining the Madrid Protocol. So I'm sure the trade will welcome it. Yes, Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, you asked just now that how long it would take. All right, it's more than 4 years, so the term is even longer than the term of office for a electrical member. I hope that you can be more efficient. I'm not criticizing you, but then I don't understand why it needs to take 4 years, because for a term of office for lawmakers, it's only 4 years, and also it's not going to be very complicated. It's not going to be very controversial. It might be somewhat complicated. So even if it's just gilding the lily, I think you should go for it. I do not see why it should take 4 years. I also have to think about it. because I also don't have the answer as to why it needs to take so long. All right, in some countries, when the protocol was first introduced in 1989, initially countries were slow in joining. That's why I was asking if the deputies, I was asking the deputy or the PAS if she could further compress the time frame, because legislation would take time. We have to amend the legislation and also the rules and regulations. And also, in preparing for the computer system, we also have to apply for funding, and then we will have to prepare the tendering or the tender document. So if you're able to complete everything in 3 or 4 years, without filibustering, right? We want to do it as soon as possible, but then according to our current projection, it will take about 3 or 4 years. All right, thank you. AOB, any AOB? If not, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.